Hi, friend. My name is Marcus Lapp. I am a speech coach. I am a former stutterer, and I am the founder of SpeakYourMindMethod.com. And today I want to share a few tips for handling situations under pressure. You, me, your stuttering friend, we can speak perfectly fine when we're alone, right? That's the general consensus, and that's the experience of most of us. But then what happens as soon as you step into that conference room, or as soon as you step into the doors of that party, or as soon as you walk into that restaurant, the dynamic just changes so quickly, right? And it's almost as if there's this new computer program that switches on and takes over for when you are under pressure and you're no longer in a relaxed, comfortable, maybe just by yourself or with a friend that you trust where you're just chill. So what can we do about this? How do we take the fluency that we have when we're chill, when we're alone, and how do we start expanding that into those pressure areas of our lives? Well, that's what I want to walk you through today. I'm going to share 4 key steps to helping you start to build fluency in those high pressure areas of your life. All right, let's get into it. So step 1 of these 4 steps that I am walking you through today is very simply come prepared. If you are trying to, expand the fluency that you have when you're alone and expand it into your public life, it's not going to work if you don't come prepared. Much like if let's say you're starting to learn to play the guitar. I'm a musician, so we'll go to music, right? If you're learning to play guitar and you can play a couple chords, but you've never played in front of people before, and you don't really practice much, you just know a couple chords and you can sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, and you can play it, right? But you're not very prepared to go on stage at an open mic or on stage at a concert and all of a sudden show up and give a great performance. You're not prepared for it yet because you haven't put in enough effort and enough time where you're really focusing on expanding your skills. And so in much the same way, you can't simply, just turn a switch and then activate it for when you're under pressure. You need to come prepared. So how do we come prepared? Well, you got to have a daily routine. You got to have a daily practice plan. You got to have a system in place. It's that simple. And so I have multiple systems and plans that I give people. You can start with the one that's completely free. You can even end with the one that's completely free if you want to. It's in depth. It's beautiful. It walks you through the entire process of this is what it looks like. This is some of the science behind it. It's my Stop Stuttering workshop. If you want to go check that out, it's 100% free. Link is in the description, and it's also on my website at SpeakYourMindMethod.com. So that would be a place to get started, get a daily routine. I also have coaching programs that you can enroll into. Whatever you do, you got to have a plan. Why? Because you got to come prepared. You're not going to be prepared if you're just kind of winging it and just hoping that you can improvise and access the right connections in your brain and use the right techniques. You got to put in the work and come prepared. Otherwise, you're just not going to succeed under pressure, okay? So that's the first step. Come prepared. Put in that work beforehand. Start following a system. Follow a plan. Step 2 to starting to become fluent under pressure is you want to identify your keystone habit. Now, this term keystone habit is a phrase that I learned from Charles Duhigg. He wrote the book called The Power of Habit. And the definition of a keystone habit is basically you could think of it as a door that opens many other doors as a result of just opening one, right? So it's like you turn one switch and multiple doors open. To give you an example of non-speech related, so let's say you have a pair of shoes that you only use to go to the gym or you only use to go for a jog. What happens when you put those shoes on? That kind of acts as a keystone habit, right? Where it opens the door, you put the shoes on, now automatically you're in running mode because your brain makes the association of, oh, you're putting the running shoes on, let's run the whole damn program and let's get it started. So in much the same way, when I give people tools and I teach you things here on YouTube or in my workshop or in my programs, I understand that sometimes it's a lot to process and it's a lot of tools and things to try out and use. But the cool thing is, and the relieving thing is, you don't need to use everything at once. I mean, not that you could even if you wanted to, because that's impossible. But that doesn't mean that you can't have access to multiple tools or multiple ways that really help you. You can because of this keystone habit or because of the things that become keystone habits in your life. To give you an example, one of my keystone habits over the years has been the tool of what I call over-articulation, okay? And so that means my normal, if I'm not really paying attention, if I'm maybe a bit sleep deprived or just feeling down or lazy, I probably won't articulate that well and I'll, talk more like this, which could make me more susceptible to those blocks and those stutters starting to creep back up on me again. But as soon as I become aware that I'm starting to slip back into those old habits, I usually only need to open up or switch one thing or open up one door, in this case, the over-articulation, and then the whole damn program starts to run again. And it activates all the other things that I've learned at the same time by the activation of just one thing. Now, this is going to depend. This is a very individual thing, and this is why you need to be practicing. You got to practice and try things out, experiment, practice a bunch of tools. Again, the workshop, my programs, go dive in and really start to practice, work on the daily routine, of course. Come prepared, as we talked about. But when you then find yourself in that situation, you want to kind of go into it with an idea of, if I start to feel stuck or if I start to feel a little bit like I'm getting off the tracks, what is a keystone habit that can lock me back on the tracks? For some people, it might be the over-articulation I said. For some people, it might be a subtle kind of smiling, trying to make sure that you have a little bit of this kind of energy where there's kind of a smile running in the background a little bit, where instead of, if you're just like feeling kind of like this, and that can lead to perhaps more stuttering, when you activate the smile for some people, that can work as a keystone habit that starts that whole program, and then you can start to really implement almost in an automatic way, implement the other things that you've learned, and then you can speak much, much better. And so this doesn't have to be tools or smiling. This can also be a thing like repeating affirmations in your head, because so if you go through the workshop, you'll have affirmations that you repeat, and it's just a small part of the routine, but it's there. And even just in your mind, kind of as you're walking in the door, perhaps kind of just to remind yourself, calm yourself down, repeat quietly in your head of like, every day I'm getting better. I am a great speaker. I love speaking. I'm a highly competent speaker. I'm getting better at speaking. And you just kind of repeat that in your head, kind of maybe close your eyes, take a minute. And for some people, that can really put them in the right headspace, and it can work as that keystone habit where now they can take off, and it acts almost as a magnet, and it draws the energy of these other useful things that you can then naturally fall into place to help you out as well. And so yeah, there is no set in stone keystone habit. Everybody has a different one. And so this will just depend on your own experimenting. This is why you need to commit yourself, come prepared, do the work, do the daily routine, because you'll learn this. You'll learn what your keystone habits are, that it'll start to develop. And often it'll be one or two things that you can really rely on to help you when you're in a pinch, when you start to feel like you're getting a bit stuck. You can rely on those keystone habits to really help you get back on the tracks. Okay? So that's step 2. You got to identify a keystone habit. Now, step 3 for building fluency under pressure is you need to break the inertia with one outside force at a time. This might take a little bit of explaining, but don't worry, it's actually quite simple. The idea of inertia comes from the realm of physics, and inertia is basically it's the idea that a thing in motion will continue to stay on its same course. It'll just kind of stay, and it's doing the same thing over and over again until or unless it is it is met by an outside force that can knock it off its normal path, right? So I want you to think about that, like inertia. What is inertia when it comes to stuttering? Well, it's the same stuttering program, those anxieties and that anticipation. You go into a high pressure situation, and what happens? The inertia of, oh, we're going to stutter. You fall into this certain pattern of speaking that's very stuttered and choppy and blocked, right? So that's kind of the inertia that we want to break with an outside force. What is this outside force? It's one thing at a time. Now, this is very much connected to the Keystone habit idea that we just talked about. So often this will be one tool. It might be the over-articulation. It might be word stretching a little bit. It might be another tool like the hammer tool. It could also be smiling like we talked about. And so we're breaking that inertia one tool at a time. Again, you're not going to remember all of the things. So you want to, if you're starting to have a tough time, and maybe even the tool that you thought was your Keystone habit tool is a bit unstable at the moment, then you want to go try something else. Try another tool, another outside force to try to break that inertia. Okay, so that's step 3. Don't allow for the same thing to occur and the same patterns to just take over and to run without you doing anything, because that is what's going to happen unless you take a different approach. And so there you go. Step 3, break the inertia with one outside force at a time. And finally, to bring this home, step 4 is use exposure therapy to continually build higher levels of competence. I talk about this all the time, so I'm not going to spend a bunch of time on this. But again, exposure therapy, what is that? That is simply slowly exposing ourselves to things that scare you a little bit. So you want to look for those areas of your life where there's a little bit of pressure, right? Because if you go for the highest pressure thing right away, it's just such a high likelihood that you're going to fail, and maybe fail in a very humiliating, embarrassing kind of way that might take some time to recover from. And so we don't want to do that. We don't want to expose ourselves to the point that we're not ready for that level of exposure yet. We want to start small, okay? And so this is where picking your battles, you could say, or picking the situations that you expose yourself to is important. So when I say put yourself under pressure, go under pressure, what to do under pressure, part of it is building that awareness of, okay, yes, my boss told me to give a presentation, and I know I'll be ready in a couple weeks or in a few weeks, but I'm going to tell him and I'm going to explain to him, I'm going to be honest about, okay, this is the plan I'm on. This is what I'm working on. I'm starting to maybe even use the words exposure therapy and tell your boss that this is what I've been doing. I'm going to focus on working on my skills, my speech skills in other less pressure areas, but I'll work my way up to it, right? So that there is that sort of wisdom that you need to be in contact with so that you don't overwhelm yourself or put yourself in too many positions that you're not ready for, that you're not prepared for, as to harken back to how we started this video. So yeah, there you go. That's where I think I'll wrap it up. Those are a few steps that you need in place to start speaking fluently under pressure. Come prepared, identify your Keystone habit, break the inertia, and use exposure therapy to continually grow your fluency. So if you want to dive deeper into this topic of rising above stuttering, developing fluency, then I have the perfect gift for you. It is my Stop Stuttering workshop. So I will leave a link in the description below for that. Be sure to go check it out, and it really could change your life. It's just it's an hour-long, in-depth video training. I think you're really going to love it and enjoy it. So go watch it, link in the description, or you can also find it at speakyourmindmethod.com. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.